The vast, tranquil expanse of the Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly, a shimmering canvas of deep indigo fading to a soft lavender at the horizon. Dawn was painting the sky in hues of rose and gold, a breathtaking spectacle that usually soothed the soul. The sun climbed higher, baking the pristine sands of Midway, yet Luke Harrelson and Ruby pressed on, their search methodical, driven by the stark SOS etched into the island's memory. Each step deepened the mystery, pulling Luke further into the unknown narrative of survival. Ruby, ever alert, nudged a pile of sun-bleached coral with her nose, revealing unmistakable signs of human ingenuity. Carefully concealed beneath a makeshift cairn lay a crudely fashioned water distiller, its copper coils oxidized but still recognizable. Beside it, a fishing spear, sharpened with painstaking effort from scavenged metal, spoke volumes of a desperate struggle for sustenance. The most profound discovery was a small, waterproof pouch tucked deep within a hollowed-out log. Inside, brittle and faded, were fragments of a journal, its pages filled with a cramped, almost frantic script. The words, though fragmented, painted a harrowing picture. Days blurring into weeks, the relentless sun, the gnawing hunger, and the dwindling, precious hope. Each item was a testament to an individual's tenacious fight against overwhelming odds, a silent scream against the vast indifference of the Pacific, igniting a powerful resolve within Luke. Luke's calloused fingers traced the journal's worn edges, the spear's crude carvings. He wasn't just seeing tools. The radio crackled, then went dead. Not static, just an abrupt, chilling silence that swallowed the vast Pacific. Luke had tried for an hour to reach official channels, to report his findings, to demand investigation. Each attempt met with dismissal, a sudden loss of connection, or a veiled warning about restricted airspace and his pilot's license. A phantom patrol boat, a gray smudge on the horizon, shadowed his movements, an unsettling reminder of unseen eyes. They weren't just advising him to leave, they were actively trying to force him out, to isolate him, to make his presence untenable. The air felt thick with their silent disapproval, a palpable pressure designed to break his resolve. Yet Luke Harrelson was not easily swayed. His ranch life, the battles with nature's fury, had forged deep resilience. He knew how to read the land, and even on the ocean, self-sufficiency remained. He found a secluded cove, hidden by reef and foliage, a perfect natural harbor for his seaplane. Here, he refueled from emergency caches, siphoning precious liquid with precise, economical movements. He rationed supplies, a habit ingrained from long stretches alone in the Texas wilderness, understanding every drop and morsel was crucial for survival. He moved with quiet efficiency, his cowboy boots silent on the damp sand, eyes scanning the horizon for threats and the island's subtle hints. Ruby, sensing the shift, remained closer, her powerful frame a comforting presence. Her keen senses were sharper than any radar. A twitch of her ear, a soft snort, or a restless shift would tell Luke more about an approaching vessel than any official communique. Her subtle nudge towards a dense scrub, where disturbed sand lay beneath a palm frond, led him to his next discovery. Buried beneath a coral and sand, concealed ingeniously, was a waterproof container. Inside, amidst preserved maps and charts, was a logbook. This was no simple survival journal, but a detailed operational log, charting a mission far more complex and dangerous than exploration. The entries were terse, precise, military-grade, hinting at a clandestine operation gone terribly wrong. Luke's calloused fingers traced the faded ink, words blurred, replaced by images from his own past. He saw Afghanistan's dust-choked plains, the camaraderie forged in shared peril. He remembered Sergeant Miller, who took a bullet for him, a quiet hero whose sacrifice still haunted his dreams. He recalled the unwritten code, "No man left behind." That code wasn't just military, it was a cowboy's creed, a fundamental principle of decency and honor. The island survivor was a comrade in spirit, a soul who had faced the abyss. Their meticulous log, their desperate efforts to preserve vital information, spoke volumes of dedication, courage, and heartbreaking isolation. This wasn't just a random person. This was someone who had given everything, perhaps even their life, for a cause. The stakes, Luke now understood, were astronomically higher. This wasn't merely a tale of a lost soul. It was a narrative of hidden truths, of powerful entities determined to keep them buried. The authorities' attempts to silence him weren't about order. They were about protecting a secret so volatile it could shatter reputations, dismantle institutions, or ignite international incidents. The logbook's entries, though still cryptic, pointed towards advanced prototypes, unauthorized testing, and a catastrophic failure deliberately erased from records. The survivor's story, if fully revealed, held potential to expose immense scandal. This terrifying realization solidified Luke's resolve, transforming his search from a humanitarian mission into a relentless quest for justice, a personal crusade against deception. The path ahead was dangerous, but turning back was no longer an option. Ruby let out a low whicker, a guttural warning, her head turning sharply towards the open ocean. Luke followed her gaze, his hand instinctively going to his saddle. A faint, almost imperceptible hum reached his ears, growing steadily louder. It was the distinct thrum of a high-speed patrol boat, cutting through the waves with predatory intent. They were closing in, much faster than he had anticipated. He had underestimated their persistence, their determination to silence him. But they, in turn, had gravely underestimated his unyielding spirit. Luke's mind raced, adrenaline spiking, but his movements remained economical, born of countless moments facing sudden danger. He didn't panic. Instead, he swung into Ruby's saddle, his eyes scanning the horizon for any advantage, any cover. The seaplane, though a lifeline, was a sitting duck. He needed to get the evidence, the logbook, to safety, and himself with it. The patrol boat was a rapidly growing speck, its roar now undeniable, a metallic predator on the pristine blue. This wasn't a warning, it was an interception. He had mere minutes, perhaps seconds, before they would be upon him, their intent unmistakably hostile. His heart pounded not with fear, but with a fierce resolve. He would not be silenced. He tore his gaze from the approaching threat, his focus snapping back to the waterproof container. The logbook, clutched tightly, held the answers. He scrambled to a hidden recess in the coral, Ruby close behind, providing a natural shield. His fingers, despite their urgency, turned to the final frantic entries. The survivor wasn't nameless anymore. The last pages, in a desperate scrawl, revealed Commander Elias Vance, United States Naval Intelligence. His mission, Project Chimera, an experimental stealth drone program. Coordinates mentioned were suspiciously close to a known international shipping lane, far from any designated test zone. Vance's final entries detailed not a malfunction, but an intentional act. He described a sudden, violent mid-air explosion, not from internal failure, but an external source. a sleek, unmarked aircraft firing a pulse weapon before vanishing. The drone, carrying sensitive data and prototype components, plunged into the ocean, taking Vance's co-pilot. Vance, severely injured, deployed an emergency raft, salvaging critical data modules before the wreckage sank. His struggle on Midway wasn't just against elements, but the crushing weight of knowing he was a target, that his government, or someone within it, had tried to eliminate him. This was no accident. It was an assassination, a deliberate act of sabotage. Luke felt cold dread intertwine with profound empathy. Vance's raw words painted a vivid picture of a man fighting not just for his life, but for the truth. He described the agony of wounds, relentless hunger, the despair of knowing rescue wouldn't come from those he served. Yet, his entries maintained stoic professionalism, a burning desire to ensure his findings would see the light of day. Luke saw Vance not as a stranger, but a brother in arms, a fellow soldier betrayed. He felt the weight of Vance's isolation, the silent scream of a man abandoned, yet unyielding. Vance's courage resonated deeply with Luke's core values, fueling his determination to honor this sacrifice. The logbook's revelations were a bombshell. Project Chimera, Vance detailed, was not merely an experimental drone. It was a highly classified offensive weapon system, developed in secret, circumventing international treaties. The entity that attacked Vance's drone wasn't a foreign power, but a shadowy domestic paramilitary group, a rogue faction operating with impunity. Vance suspected they sought the drone's technology for illicit purposes or to sell it. His last entries warned, implicating high-ranking officials in a vast conspiracy, a web of corruption and treason reaching into power's highest echelons. This wasn't just a cover-up, it was an act of war against their own. Luke knew he had to secure the logbook and every other scrap of evidence. He fumbled for his waterproof camera, snapping detailed photographs of each page, each coded diagram, each damning accusation. He carefully placed the logbook, along with Vance's hidden data modules, into his robust, watertight satchel. He also collected unique debris from Vance's makeshift camp, items that, when analyzed, would corroborate the log's claims about advanced technology and the explosion. He worked with furious haste, his hands precise, his mind formulating how to present this undeniable proof. Authorities might dismiss his claims, but they couldn't ignore the hard evidence. Vance's final message, scrawled on the last page, wasn't a plea for rescue, but a testament to hope. Tell my family I fought, and that the truth, no matter how inconvenient, will always find a way. A faded photograph, tucked into the back, showed Vance with a smiling woman and 2 young children. This image, a silent echo of a life brutally cut short, ignited a fierce, protective fire within Luke. He wasn't just a messenger, he was a custodian of a legacy. The approaching patrol boat's engine roared, now deafeningly close, its shadow looming. Luke gripped the satchel, his jaw set. He had the truth. Now he just had to survive to tell it. The hum of the patrol boat grew louder, a mechanical predator closing in on its prey. Luke didn't hesitate. His fingers deftly navigated the controls of his seaplane, the engine roaring to life with a familiar surge of power. Ruby, ever vigilant, stood poised, ready for flight. He knew a direct confrontation with the approaching vessel was futile. They had superior speed and likely superior firepower. His strategy wasn't to fight, but to evade, to disappear into the vastness of the Pacific, only to reappear where they least expected him. His goal was to buy time. Time to execute the bold plan that had been forming in his mind since he first laid eyes on the survivor's logbook. He would not be silenced. He lifted off, the seaplane skimming the waves before ascending sharply, a defiant speck against the morning sky. Below, the patrol boat, now clearly visible, changed course, its wake churning white as it accelerated in pursuit. Luke flew low, hugging the horizon, using the glare of the rising sun to his advantage, a trick learned in countless dogfights during his military days. He needed to get the evidence to the outside world, to a place where the truth could no longer be contained or denied. His target, a small independently operated news outlet he'd heard about, known for its tenacious investigative journalism and fearless reporting, located hundreds of miles away on a less frequented island. It was a long shot, but it was his only shot. As he put distance between himself and his pursuers, Luke began to encrypt the most damning sections of the logbook and the photographs he'd taken onto a secure satellite burst transmitter. This wasn't just about the survivor anymore. It was about the system that had allowed such a tragedy to be swept under the rug. The log detailed not only the experimental prototype's catastrophic failure, but also the deliberate suppression of distress signals, the active sabotage of rescue attempts, and the cold calculation to let a highly trained individual perish to protect a multi-billion-dollar project. The survivor, a brilliant scientist named Dr. Eris Thorne, had meticulously documented everything, anticipating such a cover-up. Dr. Thorne's final entries spoke of betrayal, not just by the technology, but by the very people he trusted. Luke had barely finished the transmission when his satellite phone, which he had deliberately kept offline until now, buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. He answered, his voice steady. "Harrelson." A cold, authoritative voice responded, devoid of warmth or inflection. "Mr. Harrelson, this is General Vance. I believe you have something that belongs to us." The general's tone was not a request, but a demand, a chilling pronouncement from the very heart of the cover-up. Vance spoke with the weight of decades of command, a man accustomed to unquestioning obedience. He offered Luke a substantial sum of money, a new identity, and a clean slate, all in exchange for his silence and the return of the evidence. He then swiftly pivoted to veiled threats, mentioning Luke's family ranch, his past military record, and the legal ramifications of interfering with national security. Luke's grip tightened on the phone. This was the face of the antagonist, not a faceless bureaucrat, but a man embodying the ruthless power of the establishment. "General," Luke replied, his voice a low growl. "Some things ain't for sale, and some truths, they just gotta see the light of day." Vance's voice hardened. "You don't understand the forces you're up against, Cowboy. This isn't some dusty saloon brawl. You will be crushed." The general's words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken menace, painting a stark picture of the immense power he wielded. The full scope of the cover-up was now terrifyingly clear. It involved not just a failed experiment, but a network of high-ranking military officials and corporate executives, all complicit in a conspiracy to bury a truth that would expose colossal negligence, criminal activity, and a profound disregard for human life. For a fleeting moment, Luke felt the icy grip of fear. He was just one man, a cowboy pilot pitted against an empire. The vastness of the ocean suddenly felt less like freedom and more like an inescapable trap. Could he truly stand against such overwhelming power? Could his simple code of honor prevail against such calculated ruthlessness? Doubt, a venomous serpent, whispered in his ear, suggesting surrender, escape, a return to the quiet life he'd left behind. The images of Dr. Thorne's desperate struggle, of Sergeant Miller's sacrifice, flashed before his eyes. He thought of Ruby, her unwavering trust, her steadfast presence. Ruby, sensing his internal turmoil, nudged her head gently against his arm, a soft wicker rumbling in her chest. Her warm breath, her solid form, grounded him. She was a living embodiment of the values he held dear: loyalty, courage, unvarnished truth. Her presence was a silent affirmation, a reminder of the simple, honest world he came from, a world where right was right and wrong was wrong, no matter the cost. Her loyalty was a beacon in the storm of doubt, reinforcing his connection to his roots and his purpose. He looked out at the endless blue, a renewed fire burning in his eyes. He wasn't just fighting for Dr. Thorne anymore. He was fighting for every forgotten truth, every silenced voice. He was ready. The distinct thrum of the high-speed patrol boat grew rapidly, transforming from a distant hum into a roaring threat. Luke didn't need to see it to know its intent. The authorities were done with subtle threats. This was the ultimate test, a direct challenge to his resolve. He glanced at Ruby, whose ears were now pinned back, her nostrils flaring. Her silent alarm was more potent than any siren. There was no time for deliberation, only action. He grabbed the waterproof container with the logbook, securing it tightly inside his flight jacket, the weight of the truth a heavy burden and a powerful motivator. "Come on, girl," he muttered, his voice low and urgent, vaulting into the saddle. Ruby responded instantly, her powerful muscles coiling, then releasing, galloping across the soft sand towards the seaplane. The roar of the patrol boat was now deafening, its bow slicing through the waves, a dark, menacing silhouette against the rising sun. Men in dark uniforms were visible on its deck, weapons glinting. They were not here for a polite conversation. This was a chase, a desperate race against time and overwhelming force. Luke reached the seaplane, its pontoons resting near the water's edge. He dismounted swiftly, Ruby nudging him forward, her eyes wide with a primal understanding of the danger. He quickly unfastened the mooring lines, the metallic clicks echoing in the tense morning air. As he swung himself into the cockpit, he could hear the shouts of the approaching agents. They were almost ashore. Ruby, with astonishing agility, leapt into the co-pilot's seat, settling herself with a surprising grace for such a large animal, her presence a silent promise of unwavering loyalty. He slammed the cockpit door shut, the familiar scent of aviation fuel and worn leather filling the enclosed space. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, flicking switches, engaging the starter. The engine coughed, sputtered, then roared to life, a symphony of power and defiance. The plane shuddered, its propellers churning the water into a frothy maelstrom. Through the windshield, Luke saw the first agents leap from their boat, fanning out across the beach, their weapons raised. A shot rang out, then another, the bullets ricocheting harmlessly off the plane's reinforced fuselage. This was his moral crossroads, the moment of truth. They wanted him to back down, to accept their offer of silence, perhaps even a hefty sum for his cooperation. They wanted the logbook and its secrets buried forever, but the survivor's story, etched in the faded ink, the sacrifice of his own comrades, the unwritten code of honor. It all burned within him. He would not surrender. He would not betray the memory of a brave soul. His rural traditions, his military past, his very being demanded he fight for what was right. He pushed the throttle forward, the seaplane surging into the water, gathering speed. The agents continued to fire, but their shots were growing wilder as the plane picked up momentum. The water beneath the pontoons became a blur. With a final, powerful thrust, the seaplane lifted off, soaring into the sky, leaving the frantic figures on the beach far below. Ruby whinnied softly, a sound of triumph and relief. Luke knew he wasn't safe yet. Their pursuit would not end here. But he had bought himself time. He immediately activated the plane's encrypted satellite communicator, a piece of equipment he usually reserved for emergency distress calls or remote cattle market bids. He had prepared for this, pre-programming a secure channel to an independent investigative journalist known for their integrity and fearlessness. He began transmitting the data, the scanned pages of the logbook, the photographs of the SOS, the survivors' makeshift tools, the location coordinates, everything. He compressed the files, sending them in bursts, knowing that each packet of data was a blow against the wall of silence. The transmission was slow, agonizingly so, each percentage point of victory. He could almost feel the unseen forces scrambling, trying to intercept, trying to jam his signal. But the truth, once unleashed, was a wild animal, impossible to cage entirely. He completed the transmission, a partial but significant release of information. It wouldn't be the full story, not yet, but it was enough to break the silence, enough to ignite a firestorm. He had made a significant personal sacrifice, risking everything he held dear, his freedom, his life, his simple existence. But he did so with an unshakable conviction. Some truths, he knew, were worth fighting for, no matter the cost, no matter the odds. His journey had transformed from a chance discovery into a monumental act of justice, a cowboy's last stand against a faceless, powerful adversary. The fight was far from over, but the first shot had been fired. The immediate fallout from Luke's daring transmission was nothing short of a seismic shockwave. The investigative journalist, a veteran known for their relentless pursuit of truth, wasted no time. Within hours, snippets of the survivor's logbook, alongside Luke's meticulous photographs and the coordinates of the SOS, began to circulate across encrypted channels, then through independent news outlets, and finally exploded onto mainstream media. The initial official response was a predictable torrent of denials, dismissals, and attempts to discredit Luke, painting him as a rogue operator with a vivid imagination. However, the sheer volume and undeniable authenticity of the evidence he had provided made their efforts futile. Public outcry mounted, demanding answers. The wheels of justice, though slow and ponderous, had been irrevocably set in motion. Federal agencies, under immense public pressure, reluctantly announced preliminary investigations into the alleged cover-up, their pronouncements laced with an underlying tension, a forced concession to the truth Luke had unearthed. The survivor's story, once buried in the sands of Midway and the depths of official secrecy, was finally told and honored. Captain Eleanor Vance, a name previously confined to classified files and a lonely island grave, became a symbol of incredible resilience and profound sacrifice. Her detailed logbook, a testament to her courage and ingenuity, was published, captivating a global audience. The world learned of her harrowing struggle, her unwavering spirit, and the critical information she had safeguarded. Her legacy was not just recognized, it was celebrated, a beacon of human endurance against overwhelming odds. Luke had ensured that her name, her mission, and the truth she carried would forever be etched in history, providing a profound sense of closure and vindication for a woman whose voice had been silenced for too long. Luke Harrelson, the unassuming Texan cowboy, was no longer merely a man on an adventure. He had been thrust into the spotlight, a reluctant hero whose quiet integrity and unwavering courage had pierced the veil of corruption. His journey had profoundly transformed him, reconciling the haunting memories of his military past with the determined purpose of his present. He had faced his demons, not on a battlefield, but in the desolate expanse of the Pacific, and emerged with a new understanding of his place in the world. He carried the weight of what he had witnessed, but also the lightness of having acted justly, discovering a renewed sense of direction and meaning that transcended the simple rhythms of ranch life. A deeper sense of personal peace settled within him, a quiet contentment that had eluded him for years. The vastness of the ocean, which had once held a terrifying secret and represented a terrifying adversary, now stretched before him as an endless canvas of possibility. He had honored his code, faced down powerful adversaries, and made an undeniable difference. He might still choose to live a life on the move, but it would be a journey imbued with purpose, guided by an internal compass, honed by the crucible of his experiences. He had proven that even the smallest voice, when amplified by courage, could resonate across continents and shatter the most formidable walls of silence. The story concluded not with a dramatic flourish, but with a quiet, powerful reflection. Luke stood on the shore, the setting sun painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the gentle lapping of waves a soothing balm. Ruby, his loyal Mustang, stood beside him, her head resting against his shoulder, a silent testament to their unbreakable bond. Together, they looked towards the new horizon, a boundless expanse promising new adventures, new challenges, and the enduring strength of truth. It was a powerful reminder that individual courage, when fueled by conviction, could indeed triumph over overwhelming odds, and that some battles, though fought alone, could change the world. If Luke's extraordinary journey has captivated you, hit that subscribe button right now to join our community of truth seekers. Don't miss out on more compelling stories of courage, mystery, and the indomitable human spirit. And for a deeper dive into the